What's going on, family? This is Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. This is volume 6 of the Madison Square Garden Boxing Insert. Shout out to my brother Curtis Anderson. And this video is granted by request from my brother Junior the Truth. I was going to move on to a different project, and Junior the Truth said continue with the Madison Square Garden Boxing Inserts, and we will do just that. Junior the Truth already knows if he has a request, it is automatically granted. Been a supporter of mine from day one. So let's get it going. Right here, Cleo Shane. He fought in Madison Square Garden. Let's take a look at his career. By the way, Cleo Shane is to your left. He was born November 4th, 1917 in Texas. He resides in San Diego, California. He fought from April 19th, 1938 to October 25th, 1948. He was in a ring with Maxie Shapiro 2 separate occasions, and he would defeat him twice. August 13th, 1942 at New York, Madison Square Garden. Now, the thing with Maxie Shapiro, very good fighter. He was in a ring with 7 world champions and Hall of Famers at the same time. And I have a special place in my mind for Maxie Shapiro because his trainer, his name was Teddy. He was a very, very good friend of mine. We used to hang out all the time. Teddy, at the time that I met him, was about 82 years old. And he lived on Cherry Street in the Lower East Side. And in his house, he had maybe 500 autographs of all the local fighters, world champions, and so on and so forth. He had a huge museum in his house, and it was just a pleasure visiting Teddy. R.I.P. to him. But I'm going to show you, on behalf of that, Maxie Shapiro, who's an opponent of Cleo Shane. Cleo Shane was a dynamic fighter. Now, I'm not going to have time to show you all the opponents of the fighters that I'm mentioning today. This is Maxie Shapiro. He was from the Lower East Side. He fought over 150 fights. As you can see, he had a dynamite left hook. And as you can see here, he boxed over 7 world champions. Phenomenal fighter was Maxie Shapiro. Very good Jewish fighter. So I just wanted to introduce you to Maxie Shapiro. He was an opponent of Cleo Shane. Shout out to Teddy. By the way, a quick footnote. Teddy taught me so much about Benny Leonard and Harry Greb and all of these great fighters in the past. Mickey Walker, Tiger Flowers, all of them. So R.I.P. to Teddy. He was a wealth of knowledge. And he actually seen these guys train. He's seen Sam Langford train. He's seen Gene Tunney train, Jack Dempsey train. Unbelievable. So Cleo Shane, very, very good fighter. He was in a ring with Richie Lamas. Richie Lamas became champion. Very controversial. He was supposed to face a fighter by the name of Phil Terranova. And there was some controversy there. He would eventually face him, and Phil Terranova would become champion. But Cleo Shane would face Richie Lamas November 16, 1942, October 5, 1942, and May 7, 1943. He'd be in the ring with Bobby Ruffin, another good fighter, in Madison Square Garden, August 20, 1943. He would lose to Bobby Ruffin. He'd be in a ring with Johnny Greco, another good fighter, lost to him twice in Madison Square Garden. He would be in a ring with Lefty LaChance, December 4th, 1942. Now, that fight didn't take place in Madison Square Garden, but the fighter, Cleo Shane, that we're talking about now, did fight in Madison Square Garden. I just wanted to let you know that he fought Lefty LaChance. That fight took place in the Mechanics Building in Boston, Massachusetts. Cleo Shane would be in a ring with Terry Young. Terry Young was from New Jersey, but he fought him in Philadelphia. Cleo Shane would also face Jackie Wilson, fought on March 12th at the Coliseum in Baltimore. He defeated Tony Pallone. Now, Tony Pallone was a numbers runner for the mob. He walked with a limp. He was an Italian fighter, very, very aggressive. You didn't want to meet Tony Pallone in a dark alley. He was a phenomenal fighter, short for his weight division, but he fought like a tiger. Cleo Shane was in the ring with Chicago lightweight Johnny Bratton. Johnny Bratton would move up to the welterweight division, and he would eventually become an NBA welterweight champion. Ray Robinson would move up out of the welterweight division, and he would move up to the middleweight division. Now, Ray Robinson would get his title in 1946 when he defeated number 7 ranked Tommy Bell out of Ohio. And Johnny Bratton would eventually lose his title to Kid Gavilan. But Johnny Bratton would defeat Cleo Shane twice, November 2nd and November 11th, 1945 in New Orleans Coliseum Arena. Cleo Shane would lose to Ike Williams. Ike Williams was from Trenton, New Jersey, phenomenal lightweight champion he was. He had wars with everybody. So shout out to Ike Williams. So Cleo Shane, very good fighter. And he was a fighter that fought in Madison Square Garden. Now to your left, you're looking at Lenny Mancini. Lenny Mancini was offered a fight in 1942. He was ranked number 1 against NBA lightweight champion Sammy Engot. He never got a shot because of the war. And when he came back, he just didn't get the opportunity, unfortunately, for Lenny Boom Boom Mancini. But he fought September 12, 1937 to December 19, 1947. And because he didn't get that opportunity, he said, if I ever have a son, I would love for him to fulfill my legacy and grant my number 1 dream, which is becoming lightweight champion. And he did. And he had a son by the name of Ray. You see, Lenny's name was Boom Boom. Lenny Boom Boom Mancini. And he produced Ray Boom Boom Mancini, who became lightweight champion. He would unfortunately lose his title in 1984 to Livingston Bramble. And he would have a rematch with Livingston Bramble when he turned Razai. And it would be a carbon copy of the first fight. But Ray Boom Boom Mancini was in the ring with Alexis Aguayo and, many fighters. Hector Camacho. Pretty good fighter was Lenny Boom Boom Mancini and Ray Boom Boom Mancini. Now, Lenny Boom Boom Mancini was born in Youngstown, Ohio. He died November 11th, 2003. He was 84 years of age at the time of his death. I met him several times. He stood 5'2" and he weighed 133 to 135 pounds. He had a fighting career record of total bouts, 61, 46 wins, 16 knockouts, 12 losses, and he had 3 draws. He was in a ring with a fighter by the name of Jimmy Vom, May 7th, 1940. He would have a draw with him. He'd be in a ring with Everett Reitmeyer, September 17th, 1940. And he would defeat Everett Reitmeyer. He'd be in a ring with Chief Crazy Horse, March 11th, 1941. He would defeat him. Johnny Williams, November 5th, 1946. So shout out to Lenny Boom Boom Mancini. Very good fighter he was. We're going to look at Lou Nova. He was born March 16th, 1913 in Los Angeles, California. He stood 6'2", and he was a heavyweight. I met him several times. He died September 29th, 1991. He was 78 years of age at the time of his death, and he would reside in Oakland, California. He had a 75-inch reach. And what was amazing about him, January 1st, 1934, he fought in Madison Square Garden against a fighter by the name of Ralph Barbner. That was his first opponent. Last opponent, June 6, 1945, in Fenway Park, Boston. And he fought Tommy Mariello. Tommy Mariello was from the Bronx, and he'd be knocked out in the second round by Joe Louis. Now, Lou Nova would also face Abe Simon. Now, Abe Simon was a very, very tall fighter. And he'd be an opponent for the Navy Relief or the Army Relief. I can't remember which one it was for Joe Louis. I know Buddy Bear was Navy or Army. I can't remember. It was one of the two for both men. And Joe Louis would knock him out with no problem. But Lou Nova would be in a ring with Abe Simon October 21st, 1936. And at that time, he was 13-0. Fought him at the Hippodrome in New York and defeated him in 6 rounds. He'd be in a ring with Lee Ramage, another Joe Louis opponent. As a matter of fact, Lee Ramage was the opponent that let everybody know, I don't know why I'm fumbling today, that Joe Louis was the man, because Joe Louis hit him with a very short 6-inch punch, left hook, and knocked him out clean. Lee Ramage was from California. But he would face Lou Nova January 14th, 1938, and March 1st, 1938, at the Legion Stadium and the Olympic Auditorium. Fought him twice. He'd be in a ring with Bob Nestill. Bob Nestill had blonde hair, tall fighter. Fought him November 23rd, 1937 at the Olympic Auditorium. Defeat him by knockout. He would be in the ring with Joe Louis. At the time, Joe Louis had a fighting career record of 50-0. Fought him on a Monday night, September 29th, 1941 at the Polo Grounds. And he would lose to him in 6 rounds. Joe Louis would knock him out, clean. He'd be in the ring with Max Baer. At the time, Max Baer had a fighting career record of 64-11. Fought him June 1st, 1939 at New York's Yankee Stadium. That would be in the Bronx. And he'd be caught with a vicious straight right hand by Max Baer. Now, he'd go down but get back up. He would lean over the ropes. Referee Jack Dempsey would call off the fight. And Lou Nova would be knocked out. And I believe that might have been Max Baer's, that might have been his last fight. I'm not sure. I got to double check. But he would also be in the ring with Tommy Farr. Now, Tommy Farr had a fighting career record of 71-28-19. Fought him December 16, 1938 in New York's Madison Square Garden. Tommy Farr would be Joe Louis's first title defense. Joe Louis would win the heavyweight championship belt in 1937 when he faced Jim Braddock. His next opponent would be Tommy Farr. Tommy Farr was from Wales. And he didn't knock out Tommy Farr. Tommy Farr went the distance. And everyone began saying that Joe Louis couldn't punch. And, you know, it's amazing what people say when they don't understand the game of boxing. But Lou Nova would also be in the ring with Tammy Mariello, who's from the Bronx, who was stopped by Joe Louis in the second round. He would face Lou Nova December 11th, 1942 at Madison Square Garden. Tammy Mariello was a very decent fighter, but he couldn't handle certain men and certain styles. Lou Nova was in the ring with Lee Savoy August 9th, 1943 at Wrigley Field, Chicago. He lost to him by knockout in the second round. Monday, May 25th, 1942, Griffith Stadium and Washington Stadium. We lose to him in 8 rounds. Very good fighter was Lou Nova. To your left, you have Carmine Fatter. He fought from January 12, 1939 to May 9th, 1947. He was born March 31st, 1919 in New York. That would be the year that Jack Dempsey would knock out a fighter by the name of Jess Willard in the 4th round. Toledo, Ohio. Now, Carmine Fatter would die May 29th, 2008. He was 89 years of age at the time of his death in Brooklyn, New York. I met him. He was a lightweight that stood 5'6", and he had total bouts of 69 fights, 70 wins, 32 knockouts, 19 losses, and he was stopped 8 times. He fought in Madison Square Garden December 1st, 1939 against Sully Jester. He would defeat him. January 24th, 1940, Frankie Wallace. He would have a draw with him. November 21st, 1941, Billy Davis. He would defeat him. August 28th, 1942, Carmelo Jack. He would defeat him. November 6th, 1942, Richie Lewis. He would lose to him. January 14th, 1944, he would face Lou Maxwell. This is all in Madison Square Garden. He would defeat Chester Rico. He would face Lou Feldman. He would lose to him. Chippy Larkin. He would lose to him twice. Cleo Shane, man we just talked about. He would defeat him. Bo Jack. He would lose to Bo Jack by knockout. Bo Jack was a phenomenal fighter from Augusta, Georgia. He was a lightweight. He used to shine shoes before his career and after his career. Outstanding lightweight champion was Bo Jack. Now, Carmine Fatter would also be in the ring with Johnny Hutchison. He would be in the ring with Sal Bartilio. He would lose to him. Bobby Ruffin at New York's Coliseum in the Bronx. He would have a draw with him. Very good fighter was Carmine Fatter. Albert Chalky Wright. Phenomenal fighter he was. Now, he was from Wilcott, Arizona. February 14th, 1912. And eventually he would become Phoenix, Arizona. But he would reside in San Bernardino, California. He was born February 12th, 1912, same year as Archie Moore. He died August 12th, 1957, Los Angeles, California. And it was said that he drowned in a bathtub. It would also be the same year as Henry Armstrong. Now, he'd be 120 to 139 pounds. He would have a manager by the name of Eddie Meade, who was also Henry Armstrong's manager. Now, Eddie Meade used to be an OTB ticket runner. OTB was off-track betting. You see, he used to play the horses. He actually owned a horse. And he was crooked with the mob as well. Now, he had total bouts of 220, 160, with 79 knockouts. His family would travel around the West Coast, and he would become a chauffeur for the Western actress, Mae West, who was a top-notch actor at the time, actress, I should say. And that's when he retired. Now, he became the featherweight champion, and he would hold victories over featherweight champion Harry Jeffer, featherweight champion Phil Terranova, featherweight champion Joey Archibald, featherweight champion Richie Lamas, featherweight champion Paul Jr., Featherweight champion, Freddie Miller. Middleweight champion, Freddie Steele. He would have a 3-round exhibition with him. He would lose featherweight champion, Henry Armstrong, and Willie Pep. But he also be in the ring with Sal Bartillo, Bobby Gray, Pete DeGrassi, another good fighter, Tommy Spengel, Enrique Bolanos, Bobby Ruffin, Willie Joyce, Ray Lunny, Leo Ruddock, Newsboy Brown, Alberto Baby Arizmendi. Baby Arizmendi was a California state, as well as the Mexican state champion. He would lose those titles to Henry Armstrong. Now, to your left would be Pastor Giovanelli. He was a pretty good fighter. He was. Now, he would be born July 16, 1919, in Italy. He would reside in Brooklyn, New York. He had a fighting career record of 52, 44, and 14. He had 7 losses, and he was stopped twice. Madison Square Garden 8 times. That's a lot of times in Madison Square Garden. Now, Bo Jack fought 21 times as a headliner in Madison Square Garden. That's the most till this day. But Pastor Giovanelli fought Madison Square Garden 8 times. Now, he'd be in a ring with Tony Pallone, December 17, 1945 in Madison Square Garden. Rudy Garcia, August 30th, 1946 in Queensboro Arena. Patty DeMarco, who became lightweight champion eventually over Jimmy Carter, fought him April 29th, 1947 in Sunnyside Gardens. That's in Queens. He'd be in a ring with Charlie Gabby Lewis, another good fighter, St. Nicholas Arena in New York. That's on 66th Street, across the street from Lincoln Center in Manhattan. He'd be in the ring with Bobby Ruffin, August 26, 1941 in Madison Square Garden. Harry Jaffa, who would become eventually champion, July 29, 1971, Queensboro Arena in Long Island. He would face Sonny Simon as well. So a very good fighter he was. Now to your far right would be Ken Overland. He would lose the middleweight championship belt to Severino Garcia. He was a very good fighter, was Ken Overland. Now, the thing with him, he was fighting regularly. He would fight a fighter by the name of Georgie Blake. Fought him October 4th, 1935, Chicago Stadium. September 26, 1944, the Civic Auditorium, he would face Denver Lewis, R.J. Lewis, I should say. May 23rd, 1940, he fought a fighter in Madison Square Garden. Actually, it was for the New York SAC, World Middleweight Champion. He would lose to Severino Garcia. November 1st, December 13th, he would have some great fights in 1940. Now, Madison Square Garden, he would fight for the New York SAC middleweight against Billy Seuss. And he would lose unanimous decision. Phenomenal fighter he was. Ken Overland. Friday, November 21st, 1941, Madison Square Garden, he would face another middleweight champion, Al Harstock. He would face Fred Apostoli, Ezard Charles, Moses Brown, and Paulie Walker. All very good fighters. Johnny Greco was to your left. Now, he fought June 7th, 1940 to November 1st, 1954. November 1st, 1946, Madison Square Garden. February 8th, 1946, Madison Square Garden. Now, he would take on Bo Jack, and he would have a draw with him. May 31st, 1946, Madison Square Garden, he would face Bo Jack again and lose to him. November 9th, 1945, Madison Square Garden, he would fight Tony Gennaro. October 17th, 1945, Madison Square Garden, he would face Tony Gennaro again. July 20th, 1945, Madison Square Garden, he would face Tony Gennaro once again. Harold Green, Cleo Shane, Bobby Ruffin, Freddie Archer, Ralph Zanelli, and Bob Montgomery would be the fighters he would face. Fritzy Pruden, Bo Jack, Kid Gavilan. Phenomenal fighter he was. To your right, you have Sonny Horn. He fought from 1941 to 1951, 10-year stretch. His name was George Horn Jr. He was born January 3rd, 1924 in Niles, Ohio. Shout out to Junior the Truth. He was a middleweight. He died September 27th, 1959. He was 35 years of age at the time of his death, and he would reside in Niles, Ohio. He had total bouts of 112 victories, 73 wins, 11 knockouts, and 34 losses. He had 112 total bouts. Let me make that correction. And he would face fighters such as Milton Kessler at Madison Square Garden, August 21st, 1942. Larry Fontaine, Madison Square Garden, October 30th, 1942. Joe Augusta, Madison Square Garden, January 8th, 1943. Artie Levine from Brooklyn, New York, Madison Square Garden, August 31st, 1945. Rocky Graciano, Madison Square Garden, January 18th, 1946. He would fight at the St. Nicholas Arena, New Orleans Arena, Jamaica Arena. He would also fight in Trenton Arena and the Coney Island Arena. Very good fighter was Sonny Horn. We're going to talk about these two last fighters, and I got to get going. I'm going to do a part 2 to this part. I want to talk about Madison Square Garden. I ran out of time, so let's just get into Jose Pessoa. He's to your left. He had total bouts of 105 fights, 78 wins, 44 knockouts, 20 losses, and he was stopped 5 times. He was born February 8th, 1918. 1939 to 1952 were the years that he fought. He died January 4th, 1993. He was a middleweight. I had the pleasure of meeting him. Now, you would face Jackie Cooper, Madison Square Garden, Friday, March 26, 1943. He would defeat him. Holman Williams, Madison Square Garden, January 9th, 1942. He would lose to him in the Polo Grounds, September 29th, 1941. He would face Antonio Fernandez, Madison Square Garden, March 7th, 1941. Antonio Fernandez was that guy that you had a problem with in school that would be in the lunchroom, and on his tray would be about 10 sandwiches, and they only gave out one. That's Antonio Fernandez. So when you see him with another fighter and they defeat him, that fighter is the truth. He would also face Ernest Cat Robinson, October 20th, 1948. Bert Littell, San Juan, Cisco Escobar Stadium, I believe it was called. It was a stadium in San Juan. I believe it was Cisco Escobar Stadium. He'd be in a ring with Sugar Ray Robinson in Scranton Stadium, August 25th, 1950. He'd be knocked out in the first round. Harry Kid Matthews in Portland Auditorium, August 21st, 1951. Robert Villemain, June 16th, 1952 at the Eastern Parkway Arena. Eastern Parkway was in Brooklyn in Crown Heights. Now, Ebbets Field is in Crown Heights, and that's not too far from Eastern Parkway. That's where the Dodgers used to play, the Brooklyn Dodgers. They used to call them the Brooklyn Bombs. They moved to Los Angeles. But if you go over a couple of blocks to Eastern Parkway, it was a roller rink there. And I don't know if it's still there or not, but before the roller rink, Eastern Parkway roller rink, that's where the Eastern Parkway Arena was. I took a tour there as well. So Anton Christophotis, May 26, 1917, he was Greece. He died October 1985. I met him. He was 68 years of age at the time of his death. He stood 5 feet 8 inches, and he was 72-inch reach. He fought a fighter by the name of Jimmy Bivens, lost to him. Moses Brown defeated him. Lloyd Marshall lost to him. Cleveland Public Hall is when he fought Jimmy Bivens. He fought Seferino Garcia, Johnny Colon, Milo Bettina, who was light heavyweight champion, Lou Burrell, who was middleweight champion, and Nate Bolden. Phenomenal fighter he was. He had total bouts of 76 fights, 43 wins, 13 knockouts, 15 losses, and he was stopped 3 times. He was from Turkey, Geneva. So thanks for hanging in there with me. I'm going to continue with this video, but a part 2 of it. I'm going to talk about Madison Square Garden, all the great fights that took place there, who had the most fights in Madison Square Garden, the most gross receipts, and so on and so forth. So look out for that. And salute to Junior the Truth. This video is for you, my brother. Salute.